Have you ever gone to a kitchen store and been overwhelmed and mildly confused by the vast variety of pans available? Stainless steel, cast iron, carbon steel, enameled cast iron, non-stick? Is there a meaningful difference in which one you choose to buy or what you choose to cook in each one? Well, today we are covering it all. This is a crash course in pan material. As we go through 5 of the most commonly found pan materials, we will give each of them a skillet score, where we measure their non-stick ability, weight, ease of cleaning, cost, and overall versatility. Before we get started, I want to give a big shout out to today's sponsor, Kaboodle. I have wanted to do videos like this for a long time, discussing not just ingredients, but also the tools that you use in the kitchen. And for a long time, that's been out of reach for me as a small content creator. When Kaboodle reached out to partner, I was incredibly excited. They are a Portland-based home and kitchen store that I have visited a lot before I even started making videos. They helped provide a wide variety of pans for me to talk about here, and have helped provide important materials for the cooking classes I do in Portland. To check out these pans that I'm using and more of their products, go to kitchenkaboodle.com. And without further ado, let's break it down. We're starting it off with perhaps one of the most popular kitchen choices, stainless steel. You'll find stainless steel all over home and commercial kitchens. Like all of the pans we are discussing today, stainless steel is an alloy, a blend of iron, carbon, chromium, and a few other metals. Stainless steel was first invented in the early 20th century, and since then has found a wide variety of uses, from cookware to medical equipment to construction. Stainless steel is wildly popular for many reasons. It is strong, durable, rust-resistant, non-reactive, and very easy to clean. What's on the market widely varies. The biggest variable you have to talk about with stainless steel is ply, which is the thickness of the bottom of your pan. 3-ply is probably the most common, although more expensive pans will be 5-ply. That's desirable because the thicker the base of the pan, the more consistent the heat will be across, and generally the better it will perform. You can find a vast variety of brands that sell stainless steel because of its popularity. Here today, I have the Maiden 12-inch stainless steel skillet. They can last 10 to 25 years easily as long as you take care of them properly. The biggest things to look out for being temperature shocks and pitting, which is heating salt on the surface. It can cause little dents. Stainless steel pans are honestly my go-to pan. Since they are non-reactive, they are excellent for reactive foods, aka things that are high in acid, like wine or tomatoes. And because of their high temperature durability, they are excellent at going from cooking on the stove top to roasting in the oven. Honestly, there's very few things that are hard to cook in a stainless steel pan. While technically non-stick with the right technique, that can be hard to achieve if you are new at using them. So I would not consider them excellent at cooking delicate items like eggs or tender fish. Overall, this pan has a great skillet score. We'll give it a 2 out of 5 non-stick. It can be non-stick, but you have to use the perfect technique to achieve that. A 3 out of 5 in terms of weight. It can be a fairly lightweight pan, although I'll note that the higher quality ones with more plies will be heavier. For ease of cleaning, we're going 5 out of 5. This is the kind of pan that you can scrub with steel wool, toss into the dishwasher. It is easy to clean and pretty hard to mess up. Cost widely varies based on the brand you go for and the ply, but generally we will give it a 2 out of 5. And as far as versatility goes, we're giving it a 5 out of 5. With the right technique, you can use stainless steel for just about anything. Cast iron is one of the oldest cooking materials used by humans. We have found artifacts of cast iron cookware that date back to the 8th century BC. Like most of our pans, cast iron is an alloy, mostly iron but with over 2% carbon. Cast iron, while slow to heat, maintains a uniform heat consistently for a very long time. It is hard to beat in terms of heat retention. And cast iron is incredibly durable. Because of their longevity, you can find some very cool cast iron at secondhand stores, but even pans like this 12-inch Lodge skillet, which is considered by many people to be one of the best cast iron options out there, are remarkably affordable. And if you treat it right, this should last you your entire life. Now, despite their excellent price point and good heat retention, there are some important and significant things to consider when it comes to cast iron. First and foremost, cast iron is heavy. And while right now I can manipulate this pretty easily empty, it can get to be incredibly heavy whenever it is filled with food. Raw cast iron like this does require seasoning, which is a thin coat of oil spread across the divoted, slightly porous surface. When properly seasoned, cast irons are shockingly non-stick, although a lot of care has to be put in to keep that seasoning well coated on your pan. You should avoid scraping the bottom too much, and you should also avoid what are called reactive foods. That means foods that are high in acid, like wine, vinegar, or tomatoes. The acidic materials will cut through the seasoning and actually cause iron from the cast iron itself to leach into your food, which will make your food taste slightly metallic and is not good for the pan. When properly seasoned, there are so many great things that you can cook in a cast iron. You can bake in it. I love serving cornbread from a cast iron. It is wonderful at getting a sear on a piece of meat like a steak, and because it can transition so well from the stove to the oven while maintaining its heat, I love to bake shepherd's pie in my cast iron skillet. Cast iron is not the best at delicate foods unless very carefully seasoned. It also takes a long time to heat, so I would avoid quick heat meals like stir fry or sauteing. As far as Skillet Score goes, we're going to give cast iron a 3 out of 5 in terms of non-stick, with the note that that depends on you carefully seasoning your cast iron. For weight, it's a 5 out of 5. So if you are concerned about weight with cooking, I would suggest going to a store like Kitchen Kaboodle and testing one out before investing. With ease of cleaning, we will say a 2 out of 5. They are not too difficult to clean, but you need to be mindful of the seasoning, and there are special techniques that you need to use. Cost is a place where cast iron shines. So for cost, we're gonna say 1 out of 5. And as far as versatility goes, we will give it a 3 out of 5. There are many things you can use a properly seasoned cast iron for, but it is reactive, so you have to be careful with the acidity level of the food cooked in it. This is enameled cast iron, which is in many ways the upgraded version of raw cast iron. While raw cast iron has been used for millennia to cook, enameled cast iron was not invented until the mid-18th century and not popularized until the mid-19th century. Enamel is a glass-like porcelain. An enameled cast iron is made when you coat a conventional cast iron pan in a layer of enamel. So what does the addition of enamel on the cast iron do? Enameled cast iron is fascinating because it has many of the benefits of cast iron with a few additional perks. It has the same great heat retention and consistency, but because of the enamel, it is now non-reactive. You can cook tomatoes and acidic sauces for a long period of time without doing any damage to the pan or adding a metallic taste. The addition of the enamel also prevents rusting and general weather corrosion, which means you don't have to be quite as picky and finicky when cleaning these pans. They're also just really beautiful. This is one of the few pans you're gonna find where there can be a vast variety of color choices. That being said, there are some drawbacks that come with the enamel process. This beautiful and practical coat of enamel, once damaged, is incredibly difficult, if not impossible, to repair. That means you need to avoid chipping and damaging that coating at all costs. It's also noteworthy that the enamel process will prevent you from building a seasoning on the pan the same way you would on a raw cast iron. So counterintuitively, sometimes enameled cast iron can be less non-stick than raw cast iron. While there's a wide variety of price points on the market, heirloom pieces like the Stobe and the Le Creuset can end up being very expensive. Although when properly cared for, they will last a lifetime. Enameled cast iron is wonderful for cooking meats where you want it to stick a little bit to make a pan sauce, or for reactive foods like wine sauces or tomatoes. In general, they excel in most of the ways that a cast iron would, but they prevent that reactivity, and they're a little bit easier to clean up. I would avoid cooking anything too delicate in an enameled cast iron though, something like an egg or a delicate fish. When it comes to the Skillet Score for enamel cast iron, we're gonna give it a 2 out of 5 in terms of non-stick. Because it can't build the seasoning like a raw cast iron, it tends to struggle a little bit without extra fat being added. As far as weight goes, it is a 4 out of 5. They are still heavy pans, but not quite as heavy as raw cast iron. For ease of cleaning, we are back to a 4 out of 5. They are pretty easy to clean as long as you avoid using too abrasive of scrubbers. Cost is where this one gets a little tricky. I will give it a 4 out of 5. While you can find cheaper options, in general, enameled cast iron is pricey, but does last a long time when properly treated. And last but not least, this is a very versatile pan. We're gonna give it a 4 out of 5 in terms of versatility. It has a lot of the versatility of a raw cast iron, but just a little bit extra because of the coating. Carbon steel has been around for centuries, but is really having a moment in the culinary scene. Carbon steel is an alloy that is incredibly similar to cast iron, but it has less than 2% carbon, most modern cooking pans having around 1% carbon. While that may seem like a tiny change, it has a massive impact in the material itself. Let's start with the similarities. Just like cast iron, carbon steel requires seasoning, a coat of oil that helps protect the material and keep it nonstick. Also similar to cast iron, carbon steel is reactive, which means when exposed to acidic materials for a long time, the pan will start losing its seasoning and leaching an iron flavor into the food. Also like cast iron, carbon steel is incredibly long-lasting, and when treated the right way, can be a wonderful pan for decades. But that small change in carbon percentage has made some massive differences in how this cooks compared to cast iron. First and foremost, this is a very lightweight pan. Carbon steel only weighs 30 to 50% what cast iron weighs. Carbon steel is also incredibly quick to heat. This means that carbon steel is excellent at cooking quick and fast things like stir fries or sautés. In many ways, I consider carbon steel to be this perfect combination of stainless steel and cast iron. It has the lightweight versatility and quick heat of stainless steel, but with the heavy searability of cast iron. While not as many as stainless steel, there are still many options available in the market for carbon steel. This is a WA blue carbon steel pan that was provided to me by Kitchen Kaboodle so we could discuss this material. But many other brands are dipping their toes in the carbon steel market. Because of its versatility, carbon steel has many things that it is great at cooking. You can use it for quick flash cooking like sautéing or stir fry, but you can also use it for more heavy heat contexts like searing meat. Since carbon steel is reactive like cast iron, you should avoid long-term cooking with acidic ingredients. Carbon steel can be fairly non-stick when properly seasoned, but if not perfectly seasoned, I would avoid delicate foods like eggs and fish. When it comes to Skillet Score for our carbon steel, it's going to get a 3 out of 5 in terms of non-stick, just like cast iron, with that caveat that seasoning is very important to the non-stick element. For weight, we're dropping back down to a 2 out of 5. These are lightweight and so much easier to handle than some of the cast iron pans. Ease of cleaning, we're gonna say 2 out of 5 because again, you need to be careful not to damage the seasoning on your pan. Cost can vary. I'm gonna give it a 2 out of 5. It's more expensive than cast iron, but not as expensive as some other pans. And last but not least, for versatility, we're gonna give a 4 out of 5. You can use carbon steel for so many cooking applications. The only thing you really have to be careful about is reactive foods cooked for a long time. We've arrived at our last pan and potentially the most controversial, non-stick. Unlike all of the other pans that we've discussed, this is a very modern invention. In order to talk about non-stick, we have to do a brief history lesson. So stick with me here. During the 1930s, quite serendipitously, a man named Roy Plunkett accidentally discovered a chemical known as polytetrafluoroethylene, for short, PTFE. Or, as you may know its brand name, Teflon. This petroleum-based material was non-stick as non-stick could be, and by the 1950s, we were mass-producing pans coated in this material. These pans were incredibly popular, taking the world by storm. However, by the early 21st century, we discovered trouble in paradise. It became more and more apparent through research that PTFEs, as they broke down, became very destructive chemicals. We also discovered the concept of forever chemicals, PFAS. And unfortunately, PTFEs and PFAS were wildly present in nonstick pans. So where does that leave us? Well, we love the concept of nonstick, but we don't like PFAS. Modern PFAS-free nonstick pans are usually coated in something like ceramic or enamel, like this Le Creuset nonstick pan provided to me by Kitchen Kaboodle. There's many pros to pans like this. They are incredibly great at being nonstick, but without the danger. The downside being that generally safe nonstick pans are significantly more expensive than the Teflon versions. So is there a place for a nonstick pan like this in your kitchen? While some chefs would argue that no, you don't need nonstick, I will say that I adore having one in my kitchen for limited purposes. We cook salmon at least once a week, and I find the best, most foolproof way to get a perfect crispy skin on my fillets is using a nonstick pan. Also, if you're as omelet obsessed as our family is, it is so nice to have a nonstick pan for the perfect flip. So how do nonstick pans rank in terms of Skillet Score? I can say that their nonstick property is a 5 out of 5. That is why you're buying these pans. As far as weight goes, they are fairly lightweight, let's say 2 out of 5. For ease of cleaning, modern PFAS-free ones are a 4 out of 5. You don't need to worry about scratching the material the way you would with one that might potentially have PTFE. As I noted before though, modern safe nonstick pans can get relatively pricey. We're gonna give these a 4 out of 5 in terms of cost. And last but not least, versatility. I really struggled with how to rank this one because in some ways you could give this a 4 out of 5. You can use a nonstick pan for pretty much everything, but I decided better and I'm giving this pan a 2 out of 5. What I mean by that is although you can use a nonstick for many applications, it really is most important to use in very few cases. To me, it is a tool with limited but very important use in the kitchen. As we wrap our pan material crash course, it's important to realize that there is no one perfect pan for everyone. But here are the highest ranked individuals in each of our Skillet Score categories. The nonstick pan is obviously our most nonstick. Our heaviest pan is cast iron, but lightest will go to carbon steel. Easiest to clean goes to stainless steel. For cost, instead of noting the most expensive, we will note the best bang for your buck, and that has to go to cast iron. And for most versatile, we are back to stainless steel. Given that certain pans suit certain cooking styles, it's really difficult to choose one best pan. But if I had to rank one, I would say my favorite has been the stainless steel. It is just the most versatile, easy to clean, and is pretty much my go-to anytime I need to grab a pan. I especially enjoyed this Maiden skillet. It was a new brand for me, and I was shocked by how much I am constantly cooking with this now in my day-to-day life. Let me know in the comments what cookware you would like to see a crash course in next. And if you want more information on any of these materials or how to choose the right pan for you, please check out my long-form blog of this content either on Kitchen Kaboodle's website or my website, karacancook.com. Thank you again to Kitchen Kaboodle for making this content possible. And until next time, I'm Kara and I can cook.